Good morning, my dear students. Welcome to another episode of our video class. So this morning we will discuss the framework question. Don't mind the background. It's really nice to talk about philosophy when the surrounding is so calm, it's so serene. So, you can think deeper because that's the gift of nature to us. Okay, so let us proceed to the topic. Once again, our topic for today is about the framework questions. So some authors would claim that philosophy is a kind of umbrella discipline. Umbrella because just imagine an umbrella. Everything, when there's a rain, there's a direct sunlight, you will use umbrella to cover yourself, or something like umbrella covers everything. So when we speak here of philosophy as an umbrella discipline, because it speaks, we're trying to understand here that philosophy is the beginning of all sciences. So that's why there are also authors who claim that philosophy is the mother of sciences or the queen of sciences, because most of soft and natural sciences, if not all, originated from philosophy. Let us cite, for example, one proof of that is the work of Isaac Newton, one of the famous scientists. So his work is entitled Philosophia Naturalis Principia Mathematica, or the mathematical principles of natural science. Scientists during that period were not really called as scientists but as natural philosophers. So the first philosophers during that time were called natural philosophers because they are naturally observing the nature or the works of the cosmos. So that's why even during the time of Isaac Newton, this work is a work of philosophy. No? So since during that time, philosophy and science has not separated from one another yet. Even until today, it's so hard to give a single meaning to philosophy or a single definition to philosophy, unlike other sciences which we easily give a definition. Example, in biology, so you can easily understand that biology is a study of living things. History is study about the events of the past, present, or to predict the future. So it means that in other field of study, it's so easy to give up a specific definition, but in philosophy, it's so hard to give a specific definition. Even philosophers would argue on what is the meaning of philosophy really. Okay, but then how can we recognize that we are already doing philosophy? So one distinct activity of philosophy is the question it asked. So in our previous discussions, we discussed that philosophy is more on asking questions. So let us understand here that it is not only philosophy who are asking questions, but other fields of study are also asking questions. So for this topic, we will try to understand what is the question, or what kind of question does philosophy ask, in contrast to the questions that are asked by other field of study. Example, scientists will ask this kind of question, historians will ask this kind of question. When we're studying philosophy, we will ask this kind of question. So we will try to explore what distinguishes philosophical questions from non-philosophical questions. So according to John Searle, he described a philosophical question as a kind of framework question. So, framework. So, in our discussion in science, what is the framework of our body? It's our skeletal system, our bones. So, imagine without our bones, what will happen to our body? Because of our bones, we can talk, we can walk, we have a structure, we have something like we have a figure, or we can stand as human beings. So, it means that if without bones, our body will not be like this. Other example, so in any building that is being constructed, so what, of course, the foundation, the structure. So we need a concrete, kabilya before sa butangan og atop, kay kung wala na concrete, wala na kabilya, or substandard ang concrete kabilya na agi naglinog, wasak na siyang balay. That's what we mean by foundation. So it means every field of study there is a foundation. So example, what is the foundation of the study of biology? It's because of living things. Without living things, the study of biology will not exist. Well, what is the foundation of the study of history? It's because there are events in the past, or there are events in the present that is happening, and we need to record it to avoid misinformation or something like revisionism, or to avoid what we call as fake news. Okay, so in every field of study there is a foundation. Okay, so for now, the framework question is a framework addressed directly to the framework of a certain study. It means we are trying to question here the framework itself. So in the field of biology, if biology will try to understand the living things, that's the question they are trying to answer. The philosopher will ask the framework of the living things itself. Example, how can we classify that it is really a living thing or it is a non-living thing? Clarify. Let us have another distinction according to a philosopher named Rudolf Carnap. So according to him, a philosophical question is a kind of external question, while a non-philosophical question is a kind of internal question. So he tried to develop the explanation of Shirley, because according to Shirley, a philosophical question is a kind of framework question, while a non-philosophical question is a non-framework question. So according to Rudolf Carnap, a framework question is a kind of external question, while a non-philosophical question or a non-framework question is a kind of internal question. So let us again have biology. So biology is the study of living things. So everything about living things, it's in the internal framework of biology. So for examples, so found in your handouts. So our first example there is, so there are two questions. So there's two related questions about science. So the first question is, what are the causes of earthquakes? The second question is, what is the nature of causation? So let us now try to understand the first question. So what are the causes of earthquakes? So is it a framework question or a non-framework question? Is it a scientific question or philosophical question? So of course, what are the causes of earthquakes can be answered using the study of science, because it's in a particular related studies. So it means, what are the causes of earthquakes is not a philosophical question, but a kind of scientific question, because that question can be answered using the framework of science, particularly the study of seismology, volcanology, and related field of study. But what is the nature of causation? We are now speaking here of the outside of the framework of science, because we are now trying to discover the essence of causation. And since we are now trying to discover the essence of causation, we are now going out of science. So that's one way of distinguishing a scientific question from a from a philosophical question. So let us have another example in the field of mathematics. So there are also two sets of questions there. So the first question is, what is 2 and 2? The second question is, what are numbers? So the first question is a kind of mathematical questions, because what is 2 and 2? 2 and 2 is equals to 4. It means we arrive at the equation of 4 by using the arithmetic of mathematics. So it means, what is 2 and 2 is a kind of mathematical questions, because it can be answered using the framework of mathematics. Okay, second question, what are numbers? Question is a kind of framework questions, because mathematics, or in the field of mathematics, numbers is the framework. Without numbers, mathematics will not exist. So that question, what are numbers, is directed to the framework of mathematics, which is numbers. So we are trying to question the origin of numbers. Where did numbers came from? It was a human invention. It was created by God. It comes from the ground or something like that. So we are not trying to go back to the origin of the numbers itself, or the definition of numbers itself. Another example. How sure are we that this measurement is 1 meter? How to prove that one? So we will get a meter stick. So most likely we will get a meter stick to measure if it is really 1 meter. But how sure are we that that meter stick is really 1 meter? What are the bases? So we're trying not to question. How sure are we? Okay, another example. Okay, what happened in the past? And second question is, what is time? No? So which among the two is a philosophical and a non-philosophical question? Of course, the example number 1, what happened in the past, is a kind of historical question. Since we are now questioning the past, what happened in the past? Balag sakit, balikan na to, no? So what happened in the past? It belongs in the framework of history. So it means that's a historical questions. The second example is, what is time? So we are now trying to understand the essence of time. What is time? So when we speak of time, we are trying to understand the past, the present, and the future. But does time exist really? Are we under time or something? Are we on time? So something like that. We are trying to understand the nature of time. Is there really a concept of time, or it was just a human invention that we tried to believe because it was passed on to us from our forefathers? Or another example. So we have plenty of examples here. So another example in the field of language or linguistics or English, no? And there's also two sets of questions there in your handout. So the first question is, what makes a word mean anything? The second question is, how children learn a language. Speak a question there. Where is something like a linguistic question? The question, how children learn a language, is a kind of it might be a kind of psychological question. It's a kind of linguistic. The second question here is, what makes a word mean anything? So we are now trying to understand the meaning of word. Why is it that there's a particular word has meaning? Is that meaning is an objective meaning or a subjective meaning. Some example, the word I love you. In our culture, when we can hear the word I love you, we have this kind of understanding. But what if the meaning of the word I love you in other language is different? Same word but different meaning. But in English, there are so many words that same spelling, same pronunciation but different meaning. Okay, so this one, what makes a word mean anything? We are trying to go back. We're trying to understand the framework of language. So what makes a word mean anything? Who gives meaning? Is it the word itself or the speaker itself? Okay, last example in the field of religion. Okay, so how can you explain that there is God? Okay, are you sure that there is God? So most likely or most probably our answer is to quote a verse in the Bible, or something like we will use the Bible as a basis that there is God. But in the study of philosophy, we will not try to use the Bible because the Bible is trying to assert that there is God. So we cannot use the Bible as an counter evidence to prove that there is God, because that's a fallacy of circles. Did you understand? Example, I believe in God because God is found in the Bible. So who asserted that there is God? Diba? It's in the Bible. It was written in the Bible. So in the field of theology, using the Bible is an acceptable answer. But since we are in the study of philosophy, so we cannot just say that I believe in God because God is found in the Bible. So I need to have a reasonable reason, an acceptable reason that God really exists. That's why St. Thomas Aquinas developed 5 proofs of God's existence. And other philosophers also develop proofs of God's existence. Example, there are arguments of the wager, no? There are the cosmological arguments of St. Thomas Aquinas, the ontological argument of Saint Per. Philosophy understand. So I am not trying to say here that I am not a believer of God, but we are trying to explore, to expound our knowledge of God here, not just in the Bible. Okay, what if the Bible will no longer be available, or that any news about the Bible will no longer be available? Example, in China, they are Bible, or there are people who didn't heard about the Bible. So should we assume that they didn't believe in God also? So something like that. So let us try to expound our understanding. Does God is only found in the Bible? How about in the nature? Does God is not present there? So something like that, no? So in the study of philosophy, we are trying to expound our understanding. We are trying to broaden our understanding of our experience. We're trying to expand our understanding of reality. No? That's philosophy. Okay? So kung sa una na kontento na nga tama na diri atong nasabtan, in philosophy let us always expand, because philosophers are more on asking question, not just accepting the answers. Okay, if we settle on answers, we also try to we try also to convince ourselves that tama na diha atong naibalaan. But the nature of knowledge is dynamic. It means that knowledge is always changing, is always developing. It's something like it's progressive. So if we stay on that definition, it might be that we will be left out by civilization.